Kex Theta stood before the Council of Species, trying not to show fear. The great hall stretched above them, filled with representatives from 100 different worlds. Each species had its own section, its own atmosphere bubble, its own gravity field. The Zalathi section, where Kex Theta belonged, glowed with soft blue light that reminded them of home. "You have insulted Senior Council Member Velthar," the council speaker announced. Its mechanical voice echoed through the hall. "You suggested their new trade proposal was, and I quote, as useful as teeth on a nutrient tube." Kex Theta's 4 stomach sacs churned with regret. It had been a joke. Back home, everyone would have released amused pheromones. But Velthar came from a species that grew ceremonial teeth as status symbols. The insult had been accidental but severe. "Your punishment has been decided," the speaker continued. "You will serve as military observer for the human forces during their conflict with the Vraktar Empire. You will document their primitive warfare for our archives." The hall filled with sounds of sympathy. Clicks, whistles, and hums from 100 species all meant the same thing. Poor Kex Theta. Everyone knew this was the worst possible assignment. Humans were violent, chaotic, and completely unpredictable. They were the only species to achieve space travel while still fighting among themselves. The Council kept them at arm's length, granting them only provisional membership. Kex Theta's teacher had once explained humans simply. Imagine a species that could solve complex mathematical equations while simultaneously trying to hit each other with rocks. That's humans. 3 days later, Kex Theta arrived at Observation Post 7, overlooking the human mining colony of New Thessaly. The post was a small, transparent dome floating 2 kilometers above the colony. Inside, banks of sensors and recording equipment hummed quietly. Everything Kex Theta observed would be sent directly to the Council archives. The colony below looked peaceful. About 3,000 humans lived there, mining rare minerals from the planet's crust. Small white buildings clustered around a central square. Green gardens grew between the structures. Kex Theta could see tiny human figures moving along the streets. Children played in a park. Adults sat outside what appeared to be eating establishments. It looked nothing like a military installation. Kex Theta activated the observation equipment and began their first report. Day 1. The human colony shows no signs of military readiness. No defensive walls. No weapon emplacements. The Vraktar invasion force will arrive in 7 days with 50,000 warriors. I estimate the colony will fall within 1 hour of the attack beginning. The Zalathi had evolved on a world without predators. Conflict in their society was resolved through pheromone exchange and biological consensus. Violence was not just foreign to them. It was physically impossible. Their bodies would shut down rather than cause intentional harm to another being. This made them perfect neutral observers. But it also meant Kex Theta could never truly understand what was about to happen. On the 3rd day, the humans received news of the incoming invasion. Kex Theta watched the colony's main square, expecting panic. Instead, a 67-year-old human female named Sarah Chen stood on a small platform. The colony's records listed her as a retired teacher who had come to New Thessaly to be closer to her grandchildren. "Friends," she said, her voice carrying across the square through speakers. "The Vraktar are coming. They have 50,000 warriors. We have 3,000 colonists. The Earth Defense Force says they cannot send help in time." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some humans held smaller humans, children, closer to them. "We could evacuate," Chen continued. "We have enough ships. We could run." She paused. "But this is our home. We built this place with our own hands. Our children were born here. Our friends are buried here. I'm not telling anyone what to do. But I'm staying. If anyone else wants to stay, meet me in the town hall in 1 hour. We have work to do." Kex Theta expected few to appear. Instead, 2,500 humans gathered in the hall. The others, mostly parents with young children, began evacuating, but even some of them volunteered to stay until the last transport. What happened next confused Kex Theta completely. The humans didn't build weapons. Instead, they started digging. Mining equipment appeared throughout the colony. Huge machines that normally carved tunnels through solid rock began creating trenches, underground passages, and hidden chambers. The colonists worked in shifts 24 hours a day. Day 4, Kex Theta reported. The humans appear to be trying to hide underground. This seems cowardly but practical. Perhaps they hope the Vraktar will simply take what they want and leave. But then Kex Theta noticed something odd. The tunnels weren't random. They formed patterns. Some led to dead ends. Others connected in loops. The humans were building a maze beneath their colony. Sarah Chen seemed to be everywhere at once. Despite her age, she climbed into tunnels, operated heavy machinery, and coordinated work teams. But what struck Kexatheta most was her expression. She was smiling, not the threat display that some species confused with human happiness, but a gentle, sad smile. Governor Chen, a younger human, asked her, "Do you really think we can win?" Chen put her hand on the young man's shoulder. "Marcus, winning isn't always about defeating the enemy. Sometimes it's about showing them who we are. Sometimes it's about making sure that even if we fall as humans." Marcus Webb, according to the colony records, was a janitor. He maintained the colony's water recycling systems. He had no military training, yet he nodded as if Chen's words made perfect sense. On the 5th day, the humans did something that made Kexatheta question their sanity. They held a festival. Music played in the square. Humans shared food and drink. Children played games. Adults danced. It was as if the incoming invasion didn't exist. "They deny reality," Kexatheta reported. Faced with certain death, they pretend nothing is wrong. But later that night, Kexatheta observed Sarah Chen sitting alone in her office. She held a small device that projected an image, a hologram of what looked like family members. She touched each face gently, then set the device aside and returned to her war planning. Kexatheta realized the festival hadn't been denial. It had been a choice. The humans were choosing how to spend what might be their last days. On the 6th day, a message arrived from the Vraktar commander. The crystalline warriors were famous for their pre-battle rituals. They always offered terms of surrender, though these terms were never merciful. The message played across all channels. "Humans of New Thessaly," the deep voice rumbled. "I am Supreme Warrior Grakton. You have 1 day to surrender. If you surrender, you will be enslaved but allowed to live. If you resist, every human in the colony will die slowly. Your children will watch their parents burn. Your elders will be fed to our war beasts. Choose wisely." The colony went quiet. Then Sarah Chen walked to the communications center. She broadcast a response on all channels. But it wasn't words. It was music. Something called Beethoven's Ninth Symphony filled the airwaves. The sound spread across the planet into space, reaching the approaching Vraktar fleet. When the music ended, Chen finally spoke. "Supreme Warrior Grakton, we are 3,000 miners, teachers, farmers, and families. You are 50,000 warriors. If you need those odds to feel brave, then come. We'll be waiting. But know this, we are humans. We have faced worse odds before. We have stood against darkness before. And even if we fall as humans, with beauty in our hearts and defiance in our souls." Kexatheta's instruments detected something strange. The brain patterns of every human in the colony were synchronizing. Not completely. Each remained individual, but they were aligning in some fundamental way. It was as if the humans were becoming a single organism, while remaining separate beings. "Day 7, Kexatheta reported, hands trembling as they typed. "The Vraktar arrive in 3 hours. The humans have turned their mining colony into something I don't understand. They've prepared no traditional defenses, yet they show no fear. Governor Sarah Chen, an elderly educator with no military training, has somehow unified 3,000 civilians into something that registers on our equipment as a single, coordinated entity. I am beginning to think I was wrong. This may not be over in 1 hour. It may take 2. Outside the observation post, the first Vraktar ships appeared in the sky, casting shadows over New Thessaly like approaching storm clouds. The first Vraktar drop pods hit the ground at dawn. Each pod carried 50 warriors, and they fell from the sky like metal rain. The crystalline giants emerged in perfect formation, their natural armor catching the morning light. Each warrior stood 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in sharp, diamond-hard plates that could deflect most energy weapons. Kexatheta watched from the observation post, all recording equipment active. The Vraktar moved through the empty streets of New Thessaly's outer district. No humans were visible. The colony seemed abandoned. "Cowards," Grakton's voice echoed through his troops' communication system. "They hide underground like worms." The first explosion happened when a squad of Vraktar entered what looked like a storage building. The entire structure collapsed, taking 12 warriors with it. Before the dust settled, Humans emerged from hidden positions, not with military weapons but with mining lasers, modified drilling equipment, and industrial cutting tools. Marcus Webb, the janitor Kexa Theta had observed earlier, operated a machine meant for cutting through asteroids. He turned it on 3 Vraktar warriors, the beam slicing through their crystal armor like it was glass. When they charged him, he didn't run. He stood his ground, laughing as he fired. "Is that all you've got?" Marcus shouted. "My grandmother hits harder than you." A Vraktar blade went through his shoulder, pinning him to a wall. Marcus looked at the massive warrior who had impaled him, then did something that made Kexa Theta's sensory organs recoil in confusion. He smiled and grabbed the warrior's arm, holding him in place. "Now," Marcus yelled. The ground beneath the Vraktar warrior exploded. A teenager with homemade explosives had been waiting in a tunnel below. The warrior fell into the pit, and Marcus, still pinned to the wall, operated his cutting laser with his free hand to seal the hole with molten rock. "Marcus," Sarah Chen's voice came through his earpiece. "Medical team coming to you." "Negative, Governor," Marcus replied, blood running down his chest. "I'm exactly where I need to be. This position controls 3 tunnel entrances. Send medical to someone who can be moved. I'll hold here." For 6 hours, Marcus Webb held that position. The Vraktar tried 5 times to take it. Each time, the janitor fought them off with mining equipment and jokes. He sang old Earth songs between attacks. He told stories about his wife to anyone on the communication channel. Even as his blood pooled around him, he laughed. "You know what my wife said before I left Earth?" he said into his communicator, his voice growing weak. "She said, 'Marcus, don't be a hero. Just fix things and come home.' Well, I'm fixing something right now. Fixing it so these crystal bastards learn what happens when you threaten human children." When Marcus finally died, his last words were picked up by his still active communicator. "Tell my wife I finally fixed that damn leaky pipe." Kexa Theta didn't understand. The human had died. That was a loss. Yet the other humans didn't seem demoralized. Instead, they fought harder. The pattern repeated across the colony. The humans didn't fight like any military force in the galaxy. They used deception constantly. A group of colonists pretended to surrender, walking out with raised hands. When the Vraktar surrounded them to take them prisoner, the humans detonated explosives they had hidden in the buildings around the square. They sacrificed themselves to eliminate 100 warriors. An elderly human named Tom Petrov, listed in records as a retired chef, turned the colony's water treatment plant into a trap. He flooded underground tunnels with industrial acid, just as Vraktar squads entered them. When warriors tried to escape, he sealed the exits with emergency bulkheads. "I cooked my last meal," he said over the radio before a Vraktar warrior found him and ran him through. "Hope they found it spicy." By noon, the Vraktar had taken the outer districts, but at a cost of 3,000 warriors. The humans had lost 500 people, but something strange was happening. The human brain patterns Kexa Theta had been monitoring were growing stronger, not weaker. Each death seemed to make the survivors more coordinated, more determined. Sarah Chen commanded from the town hall, which had been turned into a fortified position. She didn't give military orders like Kexa Theta had seen in other species conflicts. Instead, she made suggestions. Team 4, the Vraktar, are massing near the school. Wouldn't it be nice if the ground there suddenly became unstable? Within minutes, mining charges detonated beneath the school, creating a sinkhole that swallowed 50 Vraktar warriors. Team 7, our friends are trying to use the main road. Perhaps we should make it more difficult? The road exploded in 17 places simultaneously, creating a maze of craters and debris. What disturbed Kexa Theta most was how the humans treated their wounded, both their own and the Vraktar. When a young human medic named Lisa found a wounded Vraktar warrior, she didn't kill him. She bandaged his wounds. "Why?" the warrior asked, his translator crackling. "I came to kill your children." "Because," Lisa said, tightening the bandage, "we're not you." The warrior stared at her, confusion visible even through his alien features. "This makes no sense. You weaken yourself by wasting medical supplies on an enemy." Lisa looked him in the eye. "No. We strengthen ourselves by remembering who we are. We're humans. We can choose to be better than our circumstances." By the 3rd day, the Vraktar had taken half the colony, but they had lost 15,000 warriors. The humans had lost 1,000 people, but they kept fighting. They used everything as weapons. Kitchen knives became spears. Cleaning chemicals became bombs. Children's toys became distractions that led warriors into ambushes. Kexatheta observed a group of human children, no more than 10 years old, who had been assigned to run supplies through the tunnels. They sang songs as they ran, their voices echoing through the underground passages. When a Vraktar warrior broke through into their tunnel, the children didn't panic. They threw paint in his eyes, paint they had been carrying to mark tunnel passages and escaped while he was blinded. On the fourth day, something changed. The Vraktar brought out their heavy weapons, orbital bombardment cannons that could level city blocks. But the humans had anticipated this. They had built their tunnel system with this in mind. When the bombardment began, they went deep underground, into mine shafts that went kilometers into the planet's crust. The Vraktar warriors had to follow them down. In the tunnels, their size became a disadvantage. Their crystal armor scraped against walls. Their formation fighting was impossible. The humans, who knew every passage, every turn, every dead end, picked them off in small groups. Sarah Chen's voice echoed through the tunnel communication system. Remember, everyone, we're not trying to defeat them. We're trying to survive. Every hour we hold is an hour closer to help arriving. Every warrior they lose here is one that can't hurt another human colony. But Kexatheta detected something in the human brain patterns. They weren't just trying to survive. They were trying to prove something. Each human fought not just for their life but for an idea. The idea that humans could face impossible odds and remain human. On the seventh day, the situation was desperate. Only 800 humans remained alive. They held only the central district around the town hall. The Vraktar still had 20,000 warriors. Grakton himself prepared to lead the final assault. Then something unexpected happened. A Vraktar warrior that Lisa had saved on the second day approached Grakton. Supreme Commander, the warrior said, "These humans are not fighting like warriors. They are fighting like something else." "They fight like cornered animals," Grakton replied. "No, Commander. Animals fight for survival. These humans fight for something else. They fight to show us something. The medic who saved me, she could have killed me easily. Instead, she healed me. Why?" Grakton struck the warrior, sending him flying. "Weakness. They are weak and we will crush them." But doubt had been planted. Other Vraktar warriors had seen the human behavior. The enemy that sang while dying. The enemy that saved their wounded. The enemy that made jokes while being killed. As the sun set on the seventh day, Sarah Chen sent one final message to the Vraktar commander. "Grakton, we have held for 7 days. We have shown you who we are. Tomorrow you may kill the rest of us, but you will never defeat us, because being human isn't about winning. It's about choosing to be more than an animal even when facing death. It's about finding beauty in darkness. It's about showing mercy to those who show none. You can kill our bodies, but you cannot kill what makes us human." The message ended with music again. This time it was a children's lullaby, sung by the few dozen human children still alive in the bunkers. Kexatheta's report that night was brief. Day 7 ended. 800 humans remain. 20,000 Vraktar remain. By all logic, this ends tomorrow. But I no longer trust logic when it comes to humans. The morning of the 8th day brought something new to New Thessaly's skies. A single human ship, sleek and small, descended through the atmosphere. The Vraktar weapons tracked it but didn't fire. By galactic law, reinforcement ships were allowed to land during the traditional dawn truce period. Kexatheta zoomed in on the ship. It bore the markings of the Earth Defense Force, but it was tiny. A patrol vessel at best. When the boarding ramp lowered, only 500 humans emerged. They wore the black uniforms of EDF Marines, and they moved with the smooth efficiency that spoke of real military training. Leading them was a woman who seemed completely out of place on a battlefield. Colonel Yoshida was small, even for a human, with gray streaks in her black hair. She carried no visible weapons, just a small bag and what looked like a potted plant. Kexatheta's sensors identified it as an orchid, a decorative earth flower. Grakton's laughter boomed across the communication channels. 500! They send 500 against our 20,000. The humans have gone mad. Colonel Yoshida walked calmly through the ruins of the outer district, her Marines following. She didn't head for the town hall where the surviving colonists held out. Instead, she stopped in what had been the colony's main square, now a cratered wasteland. She activated her communicator, broadcasting on all channels. "Supreme Commander Grakton, I am Colonel Yoshida of the Earth Defense Force. Before we continue this battle, I have something for you. A small drone lifted off from the human ship carrying a large container. It flew directly to the Vraktar lines and set down its cargo. Grakton himself approached, his warriors forming a protective circle. When they opened the container, Kexatheta couldn't believe what the sensors showed. Medical supplies. Human medical supplies specifically designed for Vraktar physiology. For your wounded, Yoshida's voice came through the channels. No warrior should suffer unnecessarily. The Vraktar stood in stunned silence. In their culture, showing concern for enemy wounded was incomprehensible. The wounded were left to die or killed by their own side to prevent them from slowing the advance. "This is a trick," Grakton announced, though his voice carried uncertainty. "No trick," Yoshida replied. "Simply humanity." She turned to her Marines. "Set up medical stations. Any Vraktar wounded who approach are to be treated. Any colonist wounded are to be treated. We're not here to become monsters. We're here to remain human." The battle resumed an hour later, and Kexatheta witnessed something that defied all known military doctrine. The 500 Marines didn't fight like a traditional force. They moved like water, flowing around Vraktar positions, never where they were expected. Each Marine seemed to know exactly what the others were doing without any visible communication. Corporal Lisa Park, whom Kexatheta had observed saving a Vraktar warrior days earlier, now fought alongside the Marines. She carried a modified mining laser in one hand and a medical kit in the other. In the span of 10 minutes, Kexatheta watched her kill 3 Vraktar warriors and save 2 others who were wounded. "Why?" A wounded Vraktar warrior asked her as she bandaged his severed arm. "Why kill my brothers and save me?" "Because you're not my enemy," Lisa said, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. "You're just someone fighting on the other side." "There's a difference." The warrior's confusion was visible even through his alien features. "This makes no tactical sense." "Not everything has to make tactical sense," Lisa replied. "Sometimes things just need to make human sense." The Vraktar warriors began experiencing something unprecedented in their military history. Psychological disruption on a massive scale. Warriors who had been treated by human medics found themselves hesitating in battle. Some stopped fighting altogether, standing frozen when facing the same humans who had saved them hours earlier. One Vraktar warrior, his chest wrapped in human bandages, faced Lisa in a narrow street. He raised his blade, then lowered it. "I cannot," he said. "You saved my life. How can I take yours?" "Then don't," Lisa said simply. "Go sit down somewhere. Think about why we're really fighting." The warrior walked away, his massive frame disappearing into a ruined building. He wasn't the only one. By noon, dozens of Vraktar warriors had simply stopped fighting, their worldview shattered by human mercy. Colonel Yoshida established her command post in the ruins of a school. The potted orchid sat on a broken desk beside her tactical displays. When a Marine asked about it, she smiled. "Beauty, Sergeant. We must remember beauty exists even in ugly times. Otherwise, what are we fighting for?" Her tactical approach was unlike anything Kexatheta had seen. She didn't try to match the Vraktar strength for strength. Instead, she used what she called emotional warfare. "The Vraktar understand strength," she explained to her officers. "They understand violence. They don't understand kindness. So we will defeat them with what they cannot comprehend." Marines were ordered to leave food and water in places where wounded Vraktar would find them. They played human music during lulls in fighting. One Marine, a young man named David Kim, set up an art display in a partially destroyed building, hanging drawings made by the colony's children before the attack. A Vraktar squad found the display. Instead of destroying it, they stood staring at the images, pictures of families, pets, houses with gardens. One drawing showed a human child and a Vraktar warrior holding hands under a rainbow. The child had labeled it "After the War." "They imagine peace," one warrior said to another. "Even as we kill them, they imagine peace with us." The psychological effects spread through the Vraktar ranks like a virus. Warriors began questioning everything they knew about warfare, about enemies, about honor. Some began refusing orders that seemed unnecessarily cruel. Others started taking care to avoid collateral damage to human cultural sites. Grakton noticed the change in his troops. On the morning of the 10th day, he executed 3 of his own warriors for weakness. But this only made things worse. The warriors he killed had been saved by human medics. Their squad mates, who had witnessed human mercy and now witnessed their own commander's cruelty, began to doubt who the real enemy was. Colonel Yoshida took advantage of the confusion. Her Marines didn't press attacks against wavering Vraktar units. Instead, they focused on the units still fully committed to the fight. This created a strange dynamic where some parts of the battlefield were incredibly violent, while others were almost peaceful. In one surreal moment that Kex Theta recorded for the archives, a group of Marines and a group of Vraktar warriors found themselves taking shelter from an orbital bombardment in the same bunker. They sat on opposite sides, weapons ready, but no one fired. After an hour, one Marine offered a Vraktar warrior a food ration. The warrior accepted. "This is good," the warrior said through his translator. "My mom's recipe," the Marine replied. She'd be happy to know someone enjoyed it even here. When the bombardment ended, both groups left the bunker and went back to their lines without firing a shot. Sarah Chen, still holding the town hall with her remaining colonists, coordinated with Yoshida. The two women had never met in person but worked together as if they had known each other for years. "Colonel, we have children here," Chen said over the communicator. 43 children. "We'll get them out," Yoshida promised. "I have an idea." The idea was insane by any military standard. Yoshida proposed sending the children directly through the Vraktar lines, escorted by the wounded Vraktar warriors who had been treated by human medics. "They won't hurt children," Yoshida said. "It's the one line they won't cross. And if their own wounded are escorting them..." It worked. 43 human children walked through the middle of a battlefield, surrounded by limping Vraktar warriors who had chosen to protect them. Grakton watched from his command post, his rage building to dangerous levels. "Traitors!" he roared. "You disgrace the Vraktar Empire." But one of the wounded warriors, his arm in a human-made sling, turned to face his commander. "No, Supreme Commander. We honor it. These humans showed us mercy when our own doctrine would have us left to die. They are teaching us something we forgot. That strength without mercy is not strength at all. It is just violence." The warrior continued escorting the children to safety. Others began to follow, creating a bizarre ceasefire corridor through the battlefield. Kex Theta watched all of this with growing confusion. The humans were winning, but not through superior firepower or tactics. They were winning by fundamentally changing what the battle was about. They had turned a military conflict into something else, something that had no name in the Galactic Council's databases. On the 15th day, something unprecedented happened. A Vraktar warrior named Krell, who had lost his leg to a human mine but been saved by human medics, walked into Colonel Yoshida's command post. He was unarmed. "I wish to learn," he said simply. "Learn what?" Yoshida asked. "How to grow orchids," Krell replied, looking at the plant on her desk. "If humans can find beauty in war, perhaps there is something to this humanity you speak of." Yoshida smiled and pulled out a chair. "Sit down. Let's start with the basics. Orchids need patience like peace. You can't force them to bloom." As she taught an 8-foot-tall crystalline warrior about flower cultivation, the battle raged on around them. But something had fundamentally changed. The 16th day brought terrible news. Kex Theta's sensors detected a massive energy signature in orbit. The Vraktar had deployed their ultimate weapon, a planet killer, a device capable of cracking a world's crust and rendering it uninhabitable. It hung in space like a metallic moon, charging slowly. The announcement came across all channels in Grakton's booming voice. "Humans of New Thessaly, you have fought with trickery and confusion. You have corrupted my warriors with your weakness disguised as mercy. No more. You have 1 hour to surrender completely, or I will activate the planet killer. Not just your colony will die. This entire world will burn." The traditional hour-long countdown began, projected in the sky as massive holographic numbers. It was a Vraktar custom, allowing enemies to surrender with dignity or make peace with their gods. In the town hall, Sarah Chen sat with the remaining colonists. They numbered less than 300 now. Colonel Yoshida's Marines had been reduced to 200. Together they had held against 20,000, but none of that mattered now. "Governor," one of the colonists said, "we should surrender. At least some would survive as slaves." Chen stood up slowly. Her face showed the exhaustion of 16 days of battle, but her eyes remained bright. "Is that what Marcus Webb would say? Is that what all our dead fought for? To become slaves at the end? Then what do we do?" another colonist asked. Chen looked around the room, then at Colonel Yoshida, who had joined them. The two women exchanged a look of understanding. "We do something human," Chen said. Something so fundamentally human that it will echo across the galaxy. She turned to her aide. Where's Tommy? Tommy Chen, the governor's 12-year-old grandson, stepped forward. He was small for his age, with the same intelligent eyes as his grandmother. He had spent the entire siege helping in the medical stations, bringing water to wounded, both human and Vraktar. Tommy, his grandmother said, kneeling to his level, I need you to do something very brave and very dangerous. What, Grandma? I need you to go talk to the Vraktar commander. The room erupted in protests. Sending a child to face Grakton seemed like madness, but Chen raised her hand for silence. The Vraktar have one unbreakable rule, she explained. They never harm child negotiators. It's the deepest part of their honor code. A child who comes to negotiate must be heard. But what would a child negotiate? Yoshida asked. Chen smiled, the same sad smile Kexatheta had observed days ago. Nothing. He won't negotiate. He'll do something better. He'll show them who we are. Tommy understood without being told. He had been watching, learning, throughout the entire siege. He had seen Marines share food with Vraktar prisoners. He had helped treat wounded warriors who had tried to kill his friends. He had learned that humanity wasn't about being human by birth, but by choice. I'll need my chess set, Tommy said simply. 20 minutes later, Kexatheta watched in disbelief as a 12-year-old human child walked alone across the battlefield. He carried no weapons, no armor, just a bag containing a chess set and a small device playing music. The song was something called Clair de Lune, soft and haunting. Every gun fell silent. Every warrior, human and Vraktar, watched the small figure walk through the ruins. The countdown continued in the sky. 38 minutes remaining. Tommy reached the Vraktar command center, a massive structure built from their dropships. Warriors 10 times his size parted to let him through. He walked with no fear, his footsteps steady until he stood before Grakton himself. The Supreme Commander looked down at the tiny human. You come to surrender for your people? No, Tommy said, his young voice clear. I came to play a game. He set up the chessboard on a flat piece of rubble, arranging the pieces carefully. Grakton's confusion was evident even through his crystalline features. What is this? It's called chess, Tommy explained, sitting cross-legged beside the board. It's a game about war that we invented so we could practice fighting without anyone getting hurt. Want to learn? The countdown continues, child. Your world will burn in 35 minutes. That's okay, Tommy said, moving a pawn forward. We have time for a game. Something in the child's absolute calm disturbed Grakton more than any battle had. He found himself sitting down, his massive form making the ground shake. This piece is called a pawn, Tommy explained. They're the smallest, but they can become anything if they reach the other side. Kinda like people. As they played, Tommy talked. Not about surrender or mercy or war. He talked about his school, about his dog back on Earth, about how his grandmother made the best cookies in the colony. He showed Grakton pictures on his datapad, his class performing a play, his best friend's birthday party, his parents at their wedding. Why do you show me this? Grakton asked, moving a piece awkwardly with his large fingers. Because, Tommy said, I want you to know us, not as enemies, as people. 20 minutes remained. Other Vraktar warriors had gathered around, watching their supreme commander play a board game with a human child. Tommy pulled out another device showing images from human history. This is from World War II, he said, showing a picture. Humans fighting humans. Millions died, but look, this is the same cities now. The images showed rebuilt cities, former enemies, now allies. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years, but we always get better at making peace. Your species is insane, Grakton said. You war against yourselves. Yes, Tommy agreed, moving his knight. But that's not the important part. The important part is we stop. We forgive. We rebuild. That's what makes us scary, isn't it? Not that we're good at war. Everyone's good at war. It's that we're good at stopping. 15 minutes remained. Tommy showed Grakton more images. Art from across human history. Music from different cultures. Videos of humans helping each other during disasters. A Japanese tea ceremony. An African wedding dance. An American jazz performance. You fight without unity, Grakton observed. You have no single culture, no single belief. That's right, Tommy said proudly. We're all different. But when something threatens any of us, we become one. That's humanity. Not a species. An idea. 10 minutes remained. Gracton's hand hovered over his queen, the most powerful piece on the board. Around them, complete silence had fallen. Even the countdown seemed quieter. "Your move is flawed," Gracton said. "I can defeat you in 3 moves." "I know," Tommy replied. "But winning isn't always the point. Sometimes the point is just to play the game, to sit with someone you're supposed to hate and realize they're not that different." 5 minutes remained. Tommy pulled out one more thing from his bag, a drawing he had made during the siege. It showed humans and Vraktar standing together, not fighting but building something, a city that looked like both human and Vraktar architecture combined. "I drew this yesterday," he said. "This is what I think the future could look like. If we stop fighting." Gracton stared at the drawing. In it, small human children played with young Vraktar. The 2 species that had been killing each other for 16 days stood together under the same sun. "This is impossible," Gracton said. "Grandma says impossible things happen all the time," Tommy replied. "We just have to choose them." 3 minutes remained. Gracton's hand moved toward the device that would activate the planet killer. Tommy didn't flinch. He simply moved another chess piece. "Check," the child said. Gracton looked at the board. The human child had put his king in danger. In 3 moves, Gracton could win. But winning meant the game would end. And when the game ended, 2 minutes remained. Around them, Gracton's warriors stood transfixed. They had never seen their commander hesitate. They had never seen him consider anything beyond victory. "Your species shows mercy to those who would destroy you," Gracton said, his voice different, quieter. "You heal those who wound you. You teach games to those who come to kill you." "Why?" Tommy looked up at the massive warrior with his 12-year-old eyes, full of the wisdom children sometimes possess. "Because that's what makes us human. We choose to be kind even when everything tells us to be cruel. We choose to hope even when everything seems hopeless. We choose to see the good in others, even when they can't see it themselves." 1 minute remained. Gracton's hand hovered between the chessboard and the activation device. 30 seconds. 20. 10. Tommy moved his last piece. "Checkmate," he said softly. "You win. 5 seconds. 4. 3. 2. Gracton's massive hand came down. But not on the activation device. It came down on the chessboard, gently touching the king piece that represented him. "No," the Supreme Commander said. "You win, little human. You all win." The countdown stopped at 1 second. In the sky, the numbers flickered and died. The planet killer powered down, its terrible energy dissipating into space. Gracton stood up slowly, his warriors watching in stunned silence. He looked down at Tommy Chen, a 12-year-old human child who had just saved his world with a chess game and a conversation. "Your species is insane," he said. "You fight without hatred, kill without pleasure, and show mercy to those who would destroy you. You are either the galaxy's greatest threat or its only hope." He turned to his warriors. "We withdraw. All forces return to the ships." "But Supreme Commander," one warrior protested, "we have not been defeated." Gracton looked at the warrior, then at Tommy, then at the ruins of New Thessaly where humans still held out. 3 months had passed since the siege of New Thessaly. Kexatheta stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, their 4 stomach sacs churning with an emotion the Zalathi didn't have a name for. Every representative from every member species was present, filling the vast hall with 100 different atmospheric compositions, gravity fields, and lighting conditions. The speaker's mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. "Observer Kexatheta of the Zalathi Collective, you were assigned to document the human conflict with the Vraktar Empire. Present your findings." Kexatheta activated the holographic display. The first image showed New Thessaly as it was now, rebuilt with both human and Vraktar architectural elements. Children of both species played in the same park where the battle had raged. "I went to observe primitive warriors," Kexatheta began, their voice carrying through the translator systems. "I expected to document savagery, chaos, and the eventual extinction of a violent species. Instead, I witnessed something that challenges everything we thought we knew about conflict, about civilization, and about evolution itself." The display showed footage from the siege. The council members watched Marcus Webb dying at his post, still joking. They saw Lisa Park treating Vraktar wounded. They saw Colonel Yoshida teaching a warrior to grow orchids while battles raged around them. "The humans possess something we have no word for in any of our languages," Kexatheta continued. "They call it humanity, but it's not just their species name. It's a concept and aspiration, a choice they make every day. The choice to see potential friends and enemies. The choice to find beauty in destruction. The choice to offer mercy to those who offer none. A representative from the Althari delegation interrupted, their crystalline form chiming with skepticism. This sounds like weakness disguised as philosophy. The humans simply got lucky. Kex Theta changed the display. It showed brain scan data from the siege. Look at these patterns. When humans face extreme danger, their brains don't just activate survival instincts, they activate something else. Empathy centers. Creative centers. Social bonding regions. The more danger they face, the more human they become. They literally evolve under pressure. Not physically, but psychologically, culturally, spiritually. The display showed Tommy Chen facing Grakton, a 12-year-old child sitting with a being that could crush him instantly, teaching him a game while a planet killer counted down overhead. This child, Kex Theta said, saved his world not through violence or technology, but through the simple act of connection. He showed the enemy that they weren't enemies at all, just people on different sides who could choose to be on the same side. The Vraktar representative stood. It was Grakton himself, who had been appointed as his people's new council member after the previous one died in an honor duel. His massive form cast shadows across several other delegations. I can confirm Observer Kex Theta's report, Grakton said, his deep voice needing no translator. The humans infected us with something. Not a disease of the body, but something else. They made us question everything. Why we fight, what honor means, whether strength without mercy is strength at all. He activated his own display. It showed Vraktar warriors working alongside humans to rebuild New Thessaly. It showed Vraktar children learning to play chess. It showed the warrior Krell, who had lost his leg in the battle tending to a garden of earth orchids on the Vraktar homeworld. My people have conquered 100 worlds, Grakton continued. We have never lost a military engagement. But the humans defeated us with kindness. They conquered us with compassion. And the strangest thing is, we are grateful. For the first time in our history, we are learning there is something beyond war. The humans are teaching us to be human. The council erupted in discussion. Clicks, whistles, bioluminescent flashes, and pheromone releases filled the chamber. The speaker called for order. This is impossible, the Althari representative insisted. A species cannot be both warriors and peacemakers. It's an evolutionary contradiction. Kex Theta pulled up more data. That's what I thought. But humans have a saying. We contain multitudes. They can hold opposing ideas simultaneously. They can be brutal and gentle, savage and civilized, warriors and poets. They don't resolve these contradictions. They embrace them. The display showed human history, wars and peace treaties, destruction and rebuilding, enemies becoming allies again and again across thousands of years. They have been practicing for millennia, Kex Theta explained. Every war they fought among themselves taught them how to make peace. Every enemy they faced became a lesson in understanding. They weaponized empathy. They turned mercy into a tactical advantage. They made hope a force more powerful than any planet killer. A representative from the Zenthran hive spoke through their collective voice. But surely this makes them dangerous. A species that can manipulate emotions, that can convert enemies into allies, that can make others question their fundamental nature. They could destabilize the entire galaxy. Sarah Chen entered the chamber. She had been invited to present the human perspective. At 70 years old now, she moved slowly but with dignity. Tommy walked beside her, now 13, carrying a box. May I address the council? Chen asked. The speaker granted permission. Chen stood in the center of the vast chamber, a tiny figure among giants and energy beings and collective consciousnesses. You're right to be concerned. Humans are dangerous. We're dangerous because we refuse to accept that enemies must remain enemies. We're dangerous because we believe anyone can change, can choose to be better. We're dangerous because we see potential friends in every face, no matter how alien. She nodded to Tommy, who opened the box. Inside were hundreds of small devices. These are copies of every piece of human art, music, literature, and philosophy, Chen explained. We're offering them freely to every species in the council. Not to convert you, not to conquer you, but to share with you. Because that's what humans do. We share our humanity with anyone willing to receive it. Tommy stepped forward. 3 months ago, I played chess with Supreme Commander Grakton, while he held a weapon that could destroy my world. Today, he's teaching Vraktar children that same game. That's not conquest. That's connection. That's what we offer the galaxy. Not subjugation, but invitation. You can become human too, in all the ways that matter. The council fell silent. Then, one by one, representatives began taking the devices. Even the Althari, still skeptical, took one. Kexa Theta continued their report. I must inform the council of an unexpected development. After observing the humans, I have experienced changes in my own neural patterns. I have begun to experience something my species has never felt. Hope. Hope that conflict is not inevitable. Hope that differences can be celebrated rather than feared. Hope that the galaxy can become more than a collection of separate species maintaining an uneasy peace. The Zalathi delegation released distressed pheromones. One of their own had been fundamentally altered by exposure to humans. I am not damaged, Kexa Theta assured them. I am enhanced. I can still function as a Zalathi, but I can also understand something beyond our biological programming. I can imagine. I can dream. I can hope. The humans didn't force this on me. They simply showed me it was possible. The speaker called for a vote on humanity's status. Full membership would mean humanity would have equal standing with species that had achieved interstellar travel for millennia. It would mean trusting a species that had nearly destroyed itself multiple times. It would mean accepting that the galaxy's newest members might fundamentally change what the Galactic Council was. The vote was called. One by one, each species registered their decision. The Vraktar voted yes immediately. Others took longer, debating through chemical signals or quantum entanglement or harmonic resonance. When the final tally came, it was unanimous. Even the skeptical Althari voted yes, their representative stating, "We vote yes not because we trust the humans, but because we want to understand what they understand. We want to learn what they know. We want to become more than what we are." Sarah Chen spoke one last time. "Thank you. We know we're young as a spacefaring species. We know we're still learning. But we promise you this. We will share our greatest gift with anyone willing to receive it. The knowledge that enemies can become friends, that fear can become curiosity, that the universe is not cold and hostile, but full of potential friends we haven't met yet." As the council session ended, something unprecedented happened. Grakton approached Sarah Chen and Tommy. The massive warrior knelt, bringing himself to their eye level. "Young teacher," he said to Tommy, "I have been practicing. Would you play another game with me?" Tommy smiled and pulled out his chess set. There in the middle of the Galactic Council chamber, a human child and a Vraktar warrior sat down to play. Other species gathered around watching, learning, beginning to understand. Kexa Theta's final report entry was brief but profound. "They forced me to observe humans in war. What I saw didn't just change my understanding of humanity. It changed my understanding of what we all could become. The humans don't conquer through force. They conquer through invitation. They invite you to become better than you are, to choose hope over fear, to choose mercy over vengeance, to choose connection over isolation. They invite you to become human regardless of your